Good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Northland Sports Page. It's Brian Prudhomme. It is not Dave Cook. It is Steve Pitoscia in Dave Cook's chair this morning. It is Saturday, the 14th of September. Hopefully everybody survived Friday the 13th, or at least had an uneventful one. Or if you had events, hopefully they were positive. I'm positive we'll be here till noon, and Steve Pitoscia is with me again. It's the Brian and Steve weekend. Steve, good morning.
I'm positive we're going to have a great time today. So
we are. I've never had a bad time with you before. In fact, I was telling my wife that, and she said, I know. She kind of approached that a little bit dangerously, but she understands the fun that we'll have, and we had some fun on Thursday at Duluth, Denfeld. We'll have some fun this morning. We'll have a lot of fun tomorrow, hopefully post-Vikings victory, but we'll see what the results will be.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking forward to a Vikings Sunday, especially with San Francisco coming into town. Christian McCaffrey's out of the lineup, so despite the great performance of his backup last week, it's still got to make Vikings fans, get a little bit more, fake hope, false hope. What do you?
I was going to say maybe a false sense of security, but with the San Francisco roster of weapons, are you really ever feeling secure in a chance for a victory?
No, absolutely not. I mean, even their kicker, for crying out loud, is dynamite. So.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough task, but I can't wait for it.
You mentioned their kicker. I was going to say, don't share your feelings on Jake Moody. Lavelli Neal kind of already did earlier this morning, I guess.
Yeah, very similar feelings.
Right. So the Vikings have had good feelings against the 49ers at home, though. I heard a stat yesterday listening to PA, who will be with us at 11:05 today, and this one jarred me a little bit. The Vikings have not lost to San Francisco in Minneapolis since 1992. That seems crazy.
It seems unbelievable, to be honest, but hey, that's great. I mean, what was the Favre in the back of the end zone? That's part of that,
right? That's going to come up in our opening topic today. Spoiler alert for me.
Terrell Owens losing it on his OC. That was part of that. I mean, there's some pretty good games in that.
It's ironic because I was at both of those games. I guess I haven't noticed. I used to go to one game a year. I had 2 seasons where I had season tickets. It was ironic, not intentional, that it was the 2 Favre years. But I used to go to 1 or 2 games a year with my dad, with my brother-in-law, with whomever would go. And it's amazing as you bring those 2 up, how many Niners games I actually took in.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners, though, you think about it, when we were growing up.
Montana and Rice.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners and the Cowboys, those were kind of 2 teams. You're either on one side or the other of them. And I was a Niners fan myself, couldn't stand the Cowboys. My brother was a Cowboys fan, couldn't stand the Niners, so we had that in our house.
So we should actually have your mom interviewed today to see how that was.
Yeah, let's not do that. But I just think that this is, for some reason, I think, you got Jerry Burns who came over, and there's the West Coast offense controversy on who's the true
really
architect of that. Yeah. And, so you've got that parallel there as well. And I just think there's a lot with the Niners history and the Vikings history that is intersected. Clearly, the Niners have had more success with the big game, but I think this is going to be a fun weekend of football.
It is, and in a way, it's already been a fun weekend of football. Ours got started early because our weekend started Thursday. Thursday night at Duluth, Denfeld, it was all about the Hunters. It was their home opener. Pine City was the guest, and I'll tell you, Denfeld wasn't super hospitable. They were to us. Appreciate everybody having us, but if you're Pine City, you were rudely dismissed quickly. It was 30-0 after 1, ended 56-0. There was a play in an individual that you and I were left awestruck by the entire ride home. Yeah,
I mean, I was even talking about it at work on Friday. That reception by Tay Mans in I can't remember if it was the 3rd or 4th quarter. It was the second half of the game. I mean, we talked about it Thursday during the game. It was legitimately the most exciting play I've ever seen live at any level of football. And that young man is so fun to watch, and just from personal experience, such a humble kid too. Like it's great to see kids like that have success and see their talents being utilized. A lot of kids with maturity or whatever reason don't necessarily take full advantage of that. And
right.
Boy, he sure is.
I was going to say, you can literally say with him, he's a man among boys because he's a man's among boys, and he was 6 times into the end zone on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, when you're on the football field, absolutely. And if you were, but you were just to watch him with his buddies, like he's just one of the guys with them, and that's, I think they talked about that in the newspaper article too yesterday. So I just love seeing the success that he's having. It's awesome.
No doubt, and Duluth Denfeld is enjoying the success he's having as well. En route to a 3-0 record, they will host Duluth East next week. Duluth East, we thought could be 3-0 going into that game as well. Cloquet and Coach Jeff Ojanen said about that. They took care of East last night, 47-22.
Oh, they probably got tired of hearing everybody talk about how exciting the city of Duluth would have been with 2 undefeated teams facing off. But yeah, I mean, you can never underestimate what a Cloquet team is going to bring. You know, there's always a lot of pride and tradition in that program, no matter what the sport, and they're always going to give you, their best game.
Speaking of best game, good segue by you, because it sounded like the best game of the night involving a local team was Hermantown visiting North Branch. Now, if you're a Hawks fan, plug your ears because it didn't end well. Touchdown pass by North Branch with 3 seconds to go. The Vikings beat the Hawks 46-44 in a shootout.
Yeah, I feel like we usually hear Hermantown on the other side of that, right? Like it's usually them with the last second heroics and winning, and always disappointing to see a local team go down, and the rivalries be damned, and the jokes that we all have up here,
right.
It's kind of like your little brother or big brother, I mean, you can pick on them all day, but if someone else does, it's not so cute, right? So always like to see the success of the local kid and local athletes and local teams, and so disappointed result for the Hawks, but I'm knowing Coach Zags, they're going to bounce back pretty quick.
I was going to say I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure who's on their schedule next week, but I wouldn't want to be that team because you're exactly right. Coach Aker, Coach Zagelmeyer, they will have Hermantown ready for redemption in a week.
No doubt about it.
So again, we're talking mostly about high school football to start because Friday Night Lights is a big thing. And of course, Friday the 13th was yesterday. Again, hopefully everybody had a relatively uneventful one. But again, due to officiating shortages, we had a Thursday Night Lights back on Thursday night at Duluth Denfeld. They romped Pine City 56-0. We will hear from Erik Lofald about that later on today. But again, we're going to talk more about single plays that kind of leave your jaw on the floor because you and I were talking about opening topic possibilities on the way to the game, and I had a couple, and you said, well, you know us. We might come up with something tonight. And you dropped me off after the game, and I said, about that. Once again, you were absolutely right. Good prognostication. We're going to talk about single plays, sport by sport, Minnesota and beyond, that kind of left us with the jaw on the floor.
Yeah, well, when you see what you claim is the most exciting one live, that's a pretty...
And we both did. We doubled down on it.
Yeah, pretty good track to go down, so I'm excited to have this topic today.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go sport by sport, basketball, football, baseball, hockey, and I'm going to say it that way instead of the professional leagues because, again, Taymans at the prep level certainly qualifies if you've got a collegiate play that you think was, better than anything you've seen professionally or whatever you want to go with it. I'm more than welcome to, bring that into the conversation. Where do you want to start? Which sport?
I think we start with baseball.
All right. Baseball's tough because the awe-striking plays are just a little bit harder to come by, I think. There are big moments, but you could say a big moment is a home run. Well, seeing a ball leave a ballpark doesn't necessarily leave you awestruck unless it's a 500-footer. What was the first thing that came to mind for you? Are you, Dave, cooking this to the nth degree? Do you have notes today?
No, I don't have notes today.
Just making sure.
I don't.
So off the cuff, this is fun.
Yeah, so for me, it's the Chuck Knobloch disguise play in the World Series. That was just amazing to me.
Right.
What that did and what it ultimately, the outcome it ultimately had for the whole series. So,
well, and how good is it that somebody caught it televised wise, because I don't think a lot of us would have seen it.
Right.
All of us are going, what is Lonnie Smith doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, that is a play that when I think of baseball, just baseball overall, I think of that Twins play in the World Series by Chuck Knobloch.
I think that's a good one. I'm going to stay in that same World Series. I'm going to go to Game 6, and somebody's going to say, oh, you're going to talk about Kirby's home run. No, I'm not. His catch against the plexiglass and the almost double play, I was amazed by that.
It was incredible. And when they took the plexiglass away, it was almost disappointing because it reminded you of that play every time you saw it out there. So they needed it, and thank goodness he made it, eh?
No doubt about it. Plus, if you want to stay in the World Series, it depends on how you define awestruck, because for me, and I think for you, the way we're going with this topic is I can't believe how good that play was. Sometimes it's just I can't believe that play happened, because if you go back, and we've got buddies who are Braves fans, if you go back to the WWF back then, now WWE type move between Ken Herbeck and Ron Gant, that might be an awe-striking play too, just because you don't see it.
100%. That one actually did pop into my mind a little bit. It was actually shocking that he got away with it, that Herbeck got away with it, to be honest.
But if you ask Kent, he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Ron was falling down. What did I get away with?
It's just momentum.
I got away with helping. I was just trying to keep him up.
It's amazing that his 140 pounds into Ken Herbeck's 250 pounds was able to carry that momentum and keep him going like that.
Well, I think your difference of about $110 is correct, but if Ron Gant was only 140, wow, he was quite the specimen of an athlete then, that's for sure. But those are good starts. What about beyond Minnesota? Because I think of, and I can't remember who it was against, but I think of watching Bo Jackson, pick up a ball off the wall or on the warning track and throw it to third base on the fly, and you're just going, what did I just watch?
Oh, absolutely. Or Bo Jackson diving for a fly ball in center field. Bo was unbelievable. And the other one that comes to mind for me, and you're certainly not going to like it. I know Dave Hoops was not like it. It would be
Derek Jeter.
The Jeter against the A's.
I don't dislike it because my reaction was probably the same. I mean, I still have a ton of respect for the sport.
Yeah, 100%. And the other great one was the kid who helped with the home run out there in
against the Orioles.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think Baltimore honors him quite as much as perhaps the Yankees
not.
do. There have been some good ones. I don't know if this is a play as much as it's an encounter, but doesn't everybody think of Nolan Ryan at age 112 and Robin Ventura deciding he wants to take that on? That's not an off-striking play because I bet baseball would say we don't want that play as part of our game, but it is, and you see it over and over again. That's one of those, if the topic truly is mouth agape, jaw on the floor, that qualifies for me.
Well, if that is, I think every young man should watch that video and be reminded whenever he gets a little squirrely with his own dad, because that was quite a statement that Nolan Ryan made, but when he was feeding Robin Ventura in that game.
Well, we've heard about the memes and the stats of Robin Ventura got hit by a pitch X number of times. He got hit by a pitcher almost the same amount in one play.
Yeah, probably more, to be honest.
Right. So there are a lot of interesting plays in baseball. There's got to be some that we're missing. I think of like Jim Edmonds in center field and that unbelievable catch, diving basically outward towards the wall of how in the world did he catch that? Basically anything Torrey Hunter did, I think because of the stage, it's the Torrey Hunter robbing of Barry Bonds in the All-Star game. When I think of awe-striking plays in baseball, too many of them for me, I guess, are defensive plays. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I think that's it because of the unpredictability of where the ball's going to go off the bat, and it's tough to argue with the Willie Mays over the shoulder basket catch, right? I mean that's been baseball's for. I was going to say
the signature moment for how long,
right? So baseball has given us plenty over its time.
Right. I guess if you look at society today or security today, one of the plays you see all the time, and I said a home run's not necessarily an off-striking play because how many have been hit, that's an astronomical number total in the game. But I think of Henry Aaron when he had the then record-setting home run, and he's rounding third, and you've got two members of the crowd basically running the bases with him. I'm like, that would not happen today, or better not.
Well, right, especially with the death threats and those sort of. I mean, think I was scared. Well, it wasn't scary for those guys, but think of what danger they were in. They didn't even know about Henry Aaron, the danger he didn't know he was in. With you got two guys in Atlanta coming running at you like that. So, yeah, no doubt. And I think we could probably go on with baseball all day.
I'm going to give you one more. And I'm going to preface it by saying, hopefully nobody from PETA's listening and don't come after me for this.
I was just going to think of the Randy Johnson.
Exactly. If you ever want some indication of, because I think we've all thought about what would it be like to step in a major league batter's box and face a pitcher throwing that hard. And I'll just tell you, as much as I love the sport, my disability be damned, whatever the case may be, I would still be petrified of the idea. Sounds cool, but I would think, I can't react. What if they, decide to pitch me inside? I'm a dead man. So if you ever want a concept of how hard somebody's throwing, basically watch the play where Randy Johnson, I'll just say, blows up a bird.
Disintegrates a seagull, yes.
Yeah, National Geographic doesn't air that one, but ESPN sure does.
No doubt about it. That was one that we will never forget for sure.
All right, so if you're truly filling Dave Cook's chair, first of all, you got to muck up a couple pronunciations here, but second of all, you got to be my Will Steger and continue to lead the expedition. Where do you want to go to next sports-wise?
Let's go to the NBA.
NBA is tough because, just as I said, home runs are not off-striking. There's been a bazillion slam dunks, but there are certainly some that stand out. Is that where you started, or is it buzzer-beating type shots, or where did you go?
Well, mine is being, growing up when I did and being a huge Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan fan, that last shot he made against the Jazz.
He pushed off.
And the pose and, just to me, that was just magical. I just love that.
Don't tell Brian Russell about that.
That's his problem.
If I stay in Minnesota, there's a couple for me, and I guess this season we could just say pick an Anthony Edwards dunk. I mean, there were so many, especially in that Phoenix series. It was just Do we have the next Jordan? I hate that, but we thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the comparisons. I prefer to just.
It really has no merit except for some vertical similarities, I guess.
Right, I don't know. It's tough to compare eras. I think
100%.
You know,
and Anthony Edwards needs to remember that when he opens his mouth as well. But that's a different topic altogether. Here, I'll give you a phrase that I know you love, but I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that there's so many dunks and there's so many. I mean, pick a poster, I guess. You know
But was there the one where Jordan takes off from the free throw line and you're going, he's levitating? Nobody's done that.
Well, if you want to count dunk contests, because that was in a dunk contest, wasn't it? Because it was trying to emulate Dr. J's dunk.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if you want to go that, but quite honestly, that is impressive as that is. The J.R. Ryder dunk when he comes out of the corner and goes under the legs and then windmills, like to me, that's as cool as any dunk there has ever been.
So for the second time in roughly 15 minutes, you just gave me the ideal segue because for J.R. Ryder, yes, that's play number one. But in Timberwolves lore, and most of you might have to look this up on YouTube, there's a play where J.R. Ryder is basically trying to save the ball from going out of bounds and kind of blindly flicks it up in the air. It goes in the basket. That's one of my favorites.
That is true. I remember that now that you bring that up.
It's one of the worst eras of Timberwolves basketball because you look at who's on the floor. It's Ryder, Leitner, and three guys that you're going, oh, yeah, we had him. But that particular play was pretty unbelievable in terms of Minnesota basketball for the Timberwolves. That's something that sticks out for me. I guess when I think of basketball overall, I don't know if you were Showtime Lakers. I know Dave was. I was more obviously Boston Celtics guy. I think of the play-by-play broadcast of this just as much of the play because all I can remember is there's a steal by Bird, and I remember that all the time.
Sure. I also think back. And to answer your question, I was more of a Celtics guy because my grandpa was. And,
nice.
But the older I've gotten, I've become more of a Lakers guy just because of the personalities.
I was going to say the hardcore Yankee fan went, I can't like Boston. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's only the Red Sox. It's just the Bo Sox because I don't mind the Bruins. Cam Neely is one of my favorite guys. Ray Bork, one of my favorite guys. So
Seabass said that.
That's right.
Some of you get that. Some of you may not. Go ahead.
But what are we talking about again?
Right, talking about all-time favorite plays for basketball.
Yeah, and the Reggie Miller, New York Knicks.
Yeah,
those series back in the day. Some of those. Final minutes.
I was going to say the Reggie Miller with his hands around his throat at the end because he has 7 points in about 12 seconds.
Yeah, those are some pretty cool.
Those rivalries were just sweet overall. They could fit any topic in terms of NBA lore. If I stick to the Wolves, we all remember the game 7 against Sacramento. There's one particular three that Kevin Garnett hits with the shot clock basically down to nothing. And it's not a heave. It's not a prayer. But it's, I better take this even though I'm 30 feet away. And he buries it, and it's just like, okay, this is your night. We're not going to lose this, even though we're Minnesota. And we lose everything like this. Probably not tonight.
Yeah, I don't remember that one specifically. Shocking, I don't remember a Timberwolves highlight from 25 years ago.
Well, I thought maybe you were going to say I don't remember a Timberwolves victory. They didn't start happening for most of us till 2 years ago.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, I think anything KG did was a pretty good highlight for that club.
I'm going to go 2 levels below the NBA just for one time because it's Minnesota still, and he played at the University of Minnesota afterwards. Don't we have to give Blake Hoffarber some credit? The sitting down state tournament shot.
Yeah,
and then he's got the great buzzer beater for the Gophers as well.
Was it Woodbury or Hopkins?
I think it's Hopkins.
Is it Hopkins?
I don't remember Woodbury being that good at basketball. Okay. Any alum of either school, let us know.
I had the right colors.
Fact check us.
Right school colors.
Yes, you did. Yes, plenty of blue in there.
Yep, no doubt. That was exciting for sure.
All right, so 2 down, 2 to go. I'm going to let you continue to make the call as to the sports. We've got football and hockey left. Hockey with a hockey coach like yourself will be really interesting, and we've obviously got a lot of prep, college, and pro memories. Do you want to go there first? Because newsflash, whatever goes last, if you've listened to this show enough, usually gets rushed. But if you go with football, we'll probably end up talking about it again throughout the show. So there's my pitch to let's go hockey right now.
Yeah, I was going to go hockey anyway.
Right, perfect. It's like I know you.
Yeah. To me, Dave Spihar's
which one?
Shootout goal.
The penalty shot.
Yeah, the penalty shot goal to me.
Sorry, Matt Cullen.
I mean, but the most, that's talked about being the most exciting play in hockey. And when you look at what was on the line there and you factor in, the age of the participants involved, I think that's a pretty remarkable thing. And to get to see that live is even cooler.
I was going to say, if we're going to talk about Duluth East state tournaments, do we have to talk about the heartbreaker? The Matt Latour goal that never was?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't have to talk about that.
Why would you bring that up? Exactly. We'll move that right along. What about pro hockey? You've probably watched Circles Around Me in amounts. What do you got?
Yeah, pro hockey. From a Minnesota standpoint, seeing Andrew Burnett, score that winner.
Were we awestruck by that goal because of the quality of it, or were we awestruck by the fact that it happened? Because this was Minnesota underdogged against Colorado, and that's kind of been a lather, rinse, repeat theory. But this was, to quote Major League, who the bleep are these guys? Jacques Lemaire and company against one of the best teams probably ever assembled. Was it the goal, or was it the moment, or is it a collective yes?
I think it's the whole group. I mean, you look at the greatest goaltender of all time.
Yeah, not so great of a head coach.
Just getting your franchise back after you've lost one for so long, and to have that success so early on that stage in the playoffs. To me, the whole thing was, I think, what made that moment so great.
So again, third time in segment one, it's almost like you and I hang out together because you've given me another segue, because I too go to Minnesota, Colorado, but I go to the one after that. I go to the Mikhail Granlund goal where it looks like Bobby Orr. And it's not so much the goal itself. I mean, that was pretty. He's sprawling across. The game ends 1-0. He wins it. I remember watching that game on TV and Granlund getting stuck in the corner, and I thought, well, dump it down deep and let's hope that the game lives on. Legitimately, when he came out of there with the puck and what became the Bobby Orr goal Minnesota style, it looked to me like a glitch in a video game. There was no way that he was coming out of there, and that was the part that made me go, how in the world did that happen?
Yeah, for sure. That was incredible. And I think, when you talk about amazing goals, I think when you see them for the first time, it's you're like, holy moly. But then you see someone kind of replicate one. Like, how does that happen again?
How about the Michigan goal? It's just become the Michigan now. I remember seeing it at my grandparents' house for the first time, and I think I asked my grandfather, does that count? Because I wondered if it was legal, because nobody's done that before.
Right, and that was actually another one of mine was the Michigan goal, and Mike Legg, the first guy ever to do that now. And now we see guys trying to do it all the time. In fact, when I was coaching Tier 1 down in Omaha, we won a playoff game with a kid that he brought wax out onto the bench for the power play, because if he got the puck down low, he wanted to try, and he scored the game winner in OT doing it. So, it's something that young players now kind of, really try to emulate. So I think that not only was that a cool thing to happen,
right?
It kind of made a push in the game, and we don't see that so much in hockey, baseball, football anymore, like we do in, say, like a sport like skateboarding, where someone does
it and everybody emulates it.
Yeah. And so that I think was pretty cool.
I think that's a great point, because I was just going to say, now it feels like everybody wants to try it, but I don't think it's become devalued, because if someone can do it in hockey, we're still wide-eyed.
Well, and it is just what it's done is it's inspired to even take it a step further. So you see kids, before and after practice, they're working on the issue, but they're also seeing what, can they put a spin in it? Can they,
how can they make it their own?
Yeah, and so that's kind of cool too. I mean, anytime you see someone trying to make a new trick.
You mentioned bounce it off. We all know where Gretzky's office is. How about scoring off the back of the goaltender? I would imagine the first time. I don't remember the first time I saw that, but it happens now more than you think. I would imagine anybody's first time seeing that, we went, wait a minute, that's not a scoring opportunity back there, and now it is.
Yeah, I think somebody won an ESPY score with scoring a puck that bounced off the glass, and they were able to bat it in out of the air. I mean, and that's the other thing. I think as lacrosse has taken off, and that's really a sport I think that intersects with hockey quite a bit. The hand-eye coordination of hockey players is just
unreal.
Gone through the roof.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll tell you, I don't think I could catch a pass. The strength in some of those guys with what they can do is unbelievable.
Well, I mean, I think of like an Andy Walensky when he was 14 years old, and he'd be able to knock pucks out of the air, wrist shots out of the air like it was nothing, I mean, and that's another example, not to get off our topic, but that's another example. Andy was a great tennis player, these these kids working with lacrosse, these multi-sport athletes, those other sports help you work on those skills that help you in the sport that you're ultimately going to pursue.
No question about it. Real quick, because radio is not a visual medium. See, I got both phrases you love from me out in the first segment. Radio is not a visual medium, but you've got the bright gold UMD Bulldogs shirt on today. I've got St. Scholastica blue. We got to talk hockey and talk UMD. Again, I don't know if this is the moment or the goal, but that natty courtesy of Kyle Schmidt sticks out for me forever.
Well, it's got to be one of the greatest goals in Duluth history, right? I mean, that was so exciting and so awesome, and especially if you were someone that watched, 83 and 84 and the heartbreak of those seasons.
The Bowling Greens and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and
the Bowling Green game is not just go for football, by the way, if you come up here.
Yeah, that's right. So, that, to get them over the hump and then, the success that they've had since, it's that was awesome, when the hometown group has that kind of success.
No doubt about it. So we left 3 minutes to go to football, but the good news is Dave Hoops is next, so football will know no expiration when it comes to that conversation. I think we can stay Vikings here. You could certainly go throughout the league, but I think of our own favorite team, and there's a lot of plays that make you go, what? But again, people are going to go, well, the Minneapolis Miracle. I'm going to say no to that, because without the New Orleans Saints, I'll use a phrase I don't love, but it fits, completely screwing the pooch defensively, that's just a reception. You talked about it with the Niners. The Favre to Lewis, the first miracle, to me is much better. Now, there was less on the line, but the quality of the play, I go to that one first.
That's a good one. For me, it's the Randy Moss over the shoulder to Mo Williams coming down.
I was at that game too. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, so I think that was a pretty cool darn play. That was actually the play when I was thinking of when we were watching Tay's touchdown reception. That was the one that popped into my head.
Because everybody stopped except for the person who scored.
Right.
Yeah.
So, to me, that was a pretty exciting play. There's so many of them, though. I mean, how many of the Adrian Peterson runs where he gets through the line and got loose? Those were thrilling.
Well, and not even the ones where he necessarily gets loose. I think of the ones where he trucks somebody. The opening week of that Favre season, there's the Cleveland run of get out of my way where, like Mans, it looks like he's going to the sidelines and being content with a decent gain. And then, yes, sir, take it to the house instead. And then you think of AP, this was a pass reception. Favre blew this game with an interception a couple plays later, but he absolutely trucked the Steelers defender. I mean, that gets shown over and over.
No doubt. And you can't talk about NFC North football and great running backs without talking about the awe that Barry Sanders put us in for years, right? I mean, not enough years, quite honestly.
The highlight against the Patriots where potential Viking Harlan Barnett is just spun in circles as Barry keeps running.
Yeah, when I think highlight plays in the National Football League, that Barry Sanders is really who comes to mind.
Right. Took me a long time to realize how much I liked him because as a kid, I couldn't get past the fact that, well, he wears a Lions uniform and they're a problem for the Vikings. As I've gotten older, now, the more things stay the same. The Lions are a problem for the Vikings this year, but I look at Barry Sanders and I go, God, he's the best running back to play.
Yeah, we were really lucky to be able to watch him.
Absolutely, we were. When I talked about the Minneapolis Miracle not qualifying because, again, defenders kind of dropped the ball, or in this case, dropped coverage literally, I want to know what you feel about a couple of these plays that I'm going to bring up, but it's still kind of defensive deficiency. I think of Favre's visit to Lambeau wearing purple. And the throw to Percy Harvin, where three Packers are there, Harvin makes the catch. The Packers kind of collide into each other, and Harvin waltzes into the end zone. It's Keystone Cops type play, but I remember my jaw being wide open when it happened. But again, that felt like a good play, but the defenders made it happen.
Yeah, that felt like, to me, what that felt like was, wow, you get a guy like Favre on your team, then the other team does that stuff. Because I've always been on the team that the Vikings are always on that highlight, right?
You get Favre and the horseshoe's firmly entrenched, you know where, it seems like.
Exactly. So that's when I think of that, that's what comes to mind with me.
Well, how about one, because I don't think we can legitimately, and we'll go to Dave Hoops here in about 30 seconds, I don't think we can legitimately talk about Vikings football without a little dose of disappointment. How about Antonio Freeman against Chris Dishman in overtime? The Al Michaels, he did what? Because when the play-by-play guy says it, every fan watching, regardless of who they're rooting for, thought the same thing. The only way Vikings fans probably didn't go, what? Is we all went, well, that bleeping figures.
Yeah, for sure. That play, and then is it Gullickson? What was there was an overtime.
Erik Gulliford.
Yeah, when he was wide, they let him get right. Let him get behind.
It looked like he came off the sidelines.
Yeah, and that never happened for the Vikes. So, and that was awesome too.
Probably Jim McMahon's only signature moment wearing the purple. It was all unbelievable. We bump out with that song. We're here on the Northland Sports Page. One of our unbelievable sponsors comes your way next. Dave Hoops is with us. I'm Brian Prudhomme. He's Steve Pitoscia in for Dave Cook. We hope Dave's doing great out in Colorado with some family events this weekend. Enjoy your weekend with us. We're here till noon. Stick around. We'll be right back. I hope that's not true, but the good thing is there's plenty of beer at Hoops Brewing. We'll talk to Dave Hoops in just a moment. Dave Hoops and Hoops Brewing, one of our illustrious sponsors. We are also brought to you by here on the Northland Sports Page, a Roll Architecture Studio. ABS Auto Solutions, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Mike Regan, our good buddy at Christensen Group Insurance, Assisted Living Locators, Krause Heating and Cooling, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Ferguson Bath and Kitchen, and the Blackwoods Group. Now I feel like I'm in for Dave Cook. He does such a banner job with that. That's not easy.
Yeah, that's why when you asked me if I wanted to read it or if you should read it, I said you should read it because I didn't want to do that to our sponsors.
Yeah, that didn't even seem like much of an opinion. That was fact. You should read it.
Yeah.
You kind of put should out of there. You read it.
You read it.
Absolutely. But the good news is we paid homage to all of our sponsors. One of my favorite ways to do it with this guy is just put them on the air. We welcome Dave Hoops with Hoops Brewing. Good morning. Happy Saturday, buddy.
Good morning, guys. Great show so far. It's nice to hear the golden pit voice going on there.
I was going to say the velvet sexy tones of Steve Pitoscia. They're here.
Yeah, so
You
ready
guys
to
are too
go.
much.
What do you got for me?
Well, we'll see how I do being Dave Cook with the life-changing, life-altering questions. We'll get to those in a moment. But what do you got for us? Because I know you said you've been listening. When you think of standout plays that you couldn't believe when you saw it, how many of your choices did we cover, and what do we leave out if you got anything?
Well, I was working on the show, so I was just listening a little bit. Obviously, the Brandy Johnson comment was tremendous because everybody thinks about that. I mean, we still have to go back to the Vikings play with Pearson, because that's not a standout play, but it is a standout play.
It is. It's a standout of disappointment. That's a great take. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say that. I like the Kirby take with the plexiglass. That was pretty outstanding. I think that you guys did a beautiful job. I don't have much to add.
Yeah, we had some fun with that segment, no doubt about it. There have been some great plays in Minnesota sports history. I think it's important for us to remember that, Steve, because we often play the woe is me card, and we don't always have to.
I have a tendency to turn this into a pity party at times, but we have seen a lot of great sports, for sure.
Absolutely, we have. A great place to see a lot of sports is at Hoops Brewing. I was there earlier this week for bingo. Dave Hoops, you have very, very good beer, or perhaps I should rephrase that you have very, very good beer, because on Wednesday I had a couple of blueberries and a raspberry. If people like fruit beers, in my opinion, your place is the place to be.
Well, I always say that we only make traditional beers, and everybody said, "What do you mean, blueberry?" And I'm like, "Well, the Belgians have been brewing fruit beers for 1,500 years, so I'm just trying to follow in the using of fruit as a fermentable, which of course makes it really fun for people that maybe don't even love beer. That's a great thing to offer them."
I was going to say, I think some of your menu has taught me how to love beer. Steve, I know I introduced you to the blueberry. You're a fan.
Yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of it, and I love the raspberry too. And when cherry comes around in the winter, I try to get down as quick as I can. But quite honestly, there's really not a beer I don't enjoy down at Hoops. I've been through the list a few times. Judge me accordingly, but it's all fantastic.
I agree, and I think that's a fantastic way to phrase the question, Dave Hoops. There's a lot of things that Hoops Brewing can hang their hats on. Is the versatility of your menu maybe number one? Because that's the thing that I think catches my eye.
Well, I appreciate that. And really quick, I'll say, since we're on fruit, in a week or so, apple comes out, apple ale. Which
Another
is always,
good one.
Yeah, and then cranberry, and then it goes right into cherry. So, but to your question, I think, this is said oftentimes as not a compliment, but I take it as a huge compliment. We often are called the most traditional brewery in the state of Minnesota, which is just making fun of me with the get out of my yard, old guy brewing. But I'm really proud of that because I've been brewing for quite a long time, and I was taught by people even older than me that kind of are carrying on the styles of beer that many aren't anymore. And I'm not going to get up on my soapbox, but I'm very proud of that, and also that gives you this something for everybody when we have so many varieties. And and that's not completely true because there's certain beers that I have to send people over to Ursa or Bent or something else for bubblegum flavored sour beers or something. And that they do a great job of it, or great hazy beers. But we just stick with the traditional stuff, and it works for me because I know how to do it.
You do a lot of things very well. Again, it's a great place to watch a lot of sports. Of course, tomorrow, a great place to watch Vikings-Niners, the Vikes home opener. A couple teams you know a lot about, Dave Hoops. What do you got when you look at Vikings in San Francisco? Vikes will be minus Jordan Addison. Niners will be minus Christian McCaffrey. That's what we know right now. Plenty of other players on both sides listed as questionable.
Yeah, well, we go back to last year. It was a Monday night game, and and Kirk did really well, but nobody expected that win. When we win tomorrow, it's going to be a loud noise amongst the league. I don't care about CMC being gone. Mason will have a decent game, I don't think, like last week. But the point is, they're going to start making a huge deal out of Sam being this year's Bradford and Flores being the genius defensive coach and blah, 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 blah. And again, they're 5.5-point underdogs, right? I expect to win, but they're going to need to get out fast and not have turnovers. That's such an obvious thing to say, but they need to develop a little bit of a lead and then let their defense just, well, they're not going to blitz as well. They will, but Purdy can handle that blitz. So I think it'll be a great game. Maybe a 3 or 4 point will be the deficit for the Niners.
Let me pick my jaw off the floor that you picked the Vikes to win, Dave. But with that said, that offensive line of San Francisco and Trent Williams showed us, you don't need the preseason when you're as good as he is.
He's that good.
He was the number one rated offensive lineman last week in all of football without preseason or without a single practice, pretty much. So that offensive line versus our rehashed defensive line that looked pretty good last week. How do you think that the new defense is going to match up with that Niners O-line?
I think that they're going to struggle. Again, it's going to be some big plays that are going to really make the difference. I think that the Vikings are going to get pushed around a little bit. They have to establish a bit of a run game or just something like just nothing but short passes because he's not going to have any time at all. And I wouldn't say Darnold is wildly mobile. I mean, probably more so than Kurt. Right? That's fair. But no, I think that it's going to – I'm not just saying it's going to be easy. I just have belief in the structure that somehow or another the Vikings will pull this out because that's what we do sometimes, occasionally.
And the optimism is absolutely what you do. So I need it for my favorite baseball team because the Minnesota Twins right now are still in a playoff spot, but the lead for it is getting a little bit tenuous. 2.5 over the Tigers. They're getting a little bit more healthy, or at least they're telling us that, because Carlos Correa is coming back today. Buxton was back last night. So you finally, if they're all in the lineup today, it'll only be the 18th time that Lewis, Buxton, and Correa have played together this season. Is that going to be enough for the Minnesota Twins to hold on to a playoff spot?
I'm worried. I'm not going to lie. Next week, we all know that's the season. And, 4 games against Cleveland. And if they can go in there and split that series, I'm going to relax and I'm going to figure okay, this wild card is going to happen. And I don't see why they couldn't do that. Although, yeah, it's been weak. I mean, last night, that grand slam, boy, that was beautiful. It was an impressive shot. But I figured the Twins would win that game, and they made a little noise. But, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned, but there's no reason to, panic. We still have 2.5 game lead. Went out this weekend, right? 2 more games against Cleveland, the Reds, and just go to Ohio and make it happen. They have to win, and they have to show us they can win.
I think you and I are aligned there because your concern is usually my hitting the panic button, so I think we're kind of on the same page that way. All right, so Steve Pitoscia is literally in Dave Cook's chair doing his best Dave Cook impersonation today. I'm going to do it for this segment. Dave comes up with fantastic questions for you. I call them life-altering questions. We all get to participate, and it can kind of be open-ended when it comes to topics. So I've got 3 today, and I'm going to give you kind of a topic choice here, Dave Hoops. Do you want sports, beer, or potpourri first?
Let's start with potpourri because it's fun to say.
All right. So the potpourri, which means it's a hodgepodge of just about anything. James Earl Jones passed away this week. One of the most legendary voices, I think, ever to walk the planet. Who, when you look at your life, are the most legendary voices that you remember? That can be sportscasters, that can be actors, that can be singers. It can be whatever you want. Go ahead.
Well, that's a kind of a tough one. And, and I always think of Simba when I think of James Earl Jones because I must have watched that show 150 times. Steve knows, over and over. But I remember sitting in front of the TV. And it was always, it seemed like MASH was on every single night, but it wasn't. But then the news, Walter Cronkite, he read the news. We listened. There was not a whole lot of talk about all kinds of other stuff that was just the news, and his voice was what I believed was just spewing, the way of the world at me. So that was my first thought there, because there's a lot of people we could grab from. A lot of sportscasters. Herb Carneal is a big one, but let me go with Cronkite.
So I like all of those that you brought up. Steve, what do you got that way?
I thinking news wise, I went to Tom Brokaw right away, but for me it was Marsh Nelson, because the sports news, and then calling the games, doing the PA at Vikings games.
Yes,
like I found that out really young, and then as soon as I did, like I just globbed on to every Vikings first down. That he's from Duluth. So
I was gonna say I still bring a little bit of emulation of Marsh Nelson the way I do football PA. When I say 1st and 10 for the Greyhounds at their own 27, that's Marsh's cadence. I thought I was going to be kind of the unique one bringing up Marsh Nelson. Thanks a lot, Steve. Go ahead.
That's what I got. I thought Marsh Nelson, listening to his sports, and hearing him call Vikings games, and hearing them call local games. I just remember that as a kid so vividly, because it really one of the things that steered me towards loving sports so much.
Yeah, I would agree. Speaking of James Earl Jones, Dave obviously mentioned The Lion King. What's the role of James Earl Jones that you think about? Because obviously there was a lot of Darth Vader tributes. Where do you go?
Oh, I go right to Darth Vader. I mean, I'm a Star Wars nut as it is, so it's straight there.
All right, so at least there I get to be unique, because I think of the dad in Coming to America. That's my James Earl Jones role without question. Velvet? Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the barbershop. That's a different story altogether.
Yeah, but it's his lion
right.
that they're petting, asking if it's
this
velvet.
This is beautiful. What is that, velvet? All right, so I'm going to close with this for the voices, because both of you took two of mine. Herb Carneal and Marsh are great choices. I'm just going to throw in Vin Scully, because there's no question about that. I would actually say John Madden as well. Love it or hate it, you heard it everywhere. All right, Dave, I got two left. Beer, or, again, a little bit of a potpourri, but it's more sports?
Well, let's go beer and finish with sports.
All right. So slang has changed by generation. I'll be the first to admit that I don't understand most of the slang that the kids use today. I don't know if I'm skibbity or if I'm Ohio, and I don't think I have any riz at all, but I know that those three words exist.
I just know I won't repeat any of them because I don't know what they mean.
Right. Hopefully I didn't get canceled for doing any of that. I just threw it out there. I'll promise you I didn't Google. But a slang term, certainly when Steve and I were younger, and maybe even when you were, was the phrase, I remember my first beer, and it wasn't necessarily meant as a compliment. But guys, I want to hear the story if you remember your first beer.
I'll go quick. Believe it or not, I didn't drink in high school, which is really, nobody believes it. But if you ask my parents, it's true. So I got to college and I decided I really needed to learn quickly. And I actually came to school up here, and I was at only 17 working at Lake Air Bottle Shop. And this is a true story. The very first beer that I drank a whole bottle of and choked down and really struggled with, and I was taught by one of the older coworkers, was Anchor Steam, which is kind of hard to believe it wasn't, some version of Bud Light. But that was unbelievable, opened my eyes. There weren't a lot of imports or even, USA, distribution was to Duluth was pretty minimal. And so when I tasted that beer, which was just hugely full-bodied, but also had this snap of hops with this really, really kind of malty finish, and it was explained to me by one of the Boos. It was Matt Boo. You guys know him. It was an amazing thing because it opened my eyes, and I've actually written about this a little bit. So Anchor Steam, the very famous San Francisco beer since 1965, which has just been repurchased and will be on the market again soon. There's my little soliloquy.
Very well done, Steve. You're next. I don't think you'll take mine here, but the way we're going, who knows?
Yeah, you never know. I don't have that great of a story, although I was at an age now where I'm fortunate that I don't have to worry about my parents having me taken away from them anymore. But I was really young when I had my first sip, and I remember I didn't like it. It was at a party for my dad, and he had a can of Budweiser in his hand. It was so old. It was when you pulled the tab off of the Budweiser.
Oh, yeah.
That's how old it was. And that was my first sip of beer, and I didn't like it.
I'm very similar, but at least it's not the same beer. My first sip I didn't like because it came up almost as quick as it went down. and mine was an accident. I had been fishing with my uncle in Renshaw, and we were sitting at their house, and the ladies were playing Trivial Pursuit. And I climbed up on my mom's lap to join the game. But on the TV across the way was the Twins game. And I had a soda, and my mom had a Blatz. And Kirby hit a home run, and I kept watching the game and blindly reached for a can and tilted it back to my mouth. I didn't grab my soda. I grabbed a Blatz. And you want to talk about jaw on the floor. It was, what in the world did I just drink? And I think I spit it out, and there may have been some tears right after that, but that still qualifies as my first beer. Thoughts on Blatz, Dave Hoops?
I think it's a great legacy brand that, they're all cool and they're all made at the same plant. Just so you know, they're called Streams. So you just pick and choose them. You can Blatz, Hams, old style.
Pig's Eye.
Go for it. They're all cool. Yep. Well, no, Pig's Eye isn't made there, but yeah, you're on it.
All right, speaking of cool, give us the coolest reasons to come to the brewery this weekend, and then close with the Vikes 49ers score prediction.
Okay, so the biggest reason besides Blueberry is to come down and have our Wiesn Oktoberfest. Now, obviously, Oktoberfest Duluth is going on now, but we make a traditional beer that is exactly like what you'll try in Munich, and it's really, really worth trying. So Wiesn Oktoberfest. Wiesn doesn't mean wheat. It means the festival itself. So Hoops Oktoberfest. As far as the Vikings go, 31-28 Vikings in just a head-scratching win. How about that?
I like it. Sounds like I'm going to need the defibrillator as well in a one-score game like that. So I want you to grade me too, Dave Hoops. How'd I do with my questions replacing Dave Cook today?
I think they were really, really good. Nothing about like AI or like cloning or anything else. So I give you a A-.
I'll take that. The woolly mammoths were safe today. Head on down to Hoops, grab some Blueberry, or I'm going to go with this bad pun, Dave Hoops. It's the Wiesn for the season. How about that?
That's beautiful. You guys have a good show. Nice to chat with you too, Steve.
Always great to hear from you, Dave.
All right, we love you, Dave Hoops. We'll talk to you next Saturday. Up next, Denfeld Hunters football coach Erik Lofald. We're getting together with him. We'll be right back. A little James Brown. This is a man's world, and I'll tell you what, if you were at Duluth Denfeld on Thursday night at the Walt, as I like to call it, Vikings Field at Walt Hunting Stadium, Tay Mans was everywhere, and Steve Pitoscia and I, again, the theme of the day, left jaw agape. In fact, I played back that touchdown, our radio call today. I'll never say that I do a perfect play-by-play or anything close to it, but it was fun to listen to that because the shock in our voices was pretty prevalent.
It was the coolest play. I just can't get over how awesome that was. That was so exciting and so cool to watch and to be there live to see it. Because let's be honest, it's a high school sports play, right? So the chances of finding video or whatever on it to be able to see a highlight tape of that, you're probably not going to get a chance to do that, So to be there live and see that, that was just great.
It was pretty amazing. One of a six-pack of Tay Mans touchdowns for the Hunters, 56-0. They take care of Pine City back on Thursday. Perhaps the only man not shocked by the whole development is the guy we're going to talk to now, Erik Lofald. He is the head coach of the Denfeld Hunters, very good friend of mine for a long, long time, which is a decorated way of saying we're getting old. But I'm happy to welcome him. Happy Saturday, buddy. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm just enjoying a beautiful morning here. I'm actually at the Walt because I'm site managing the Scholastica football game today. So I'm here with the Scholastica crew as they set up the field. So kind of have a bird's eye view of how things go on a Saturday morning for a Scholastica home game.
Absolutely. So that just means I'll see you in a little over an hour because right from here, I'll be doing the webcast of that one right back in the same chair I had Thursday night. But you had the best front row seat. Tay Mans doesn't surprise anybody anymore. He doesn't sneak up on anybody anymore. But that doesn't mean he doesn't leave you overly impressed time and time again. Is that true even for you? Because you see the kid every day.
It really is. I mean, just to be around him at practice, he does things in practice that you see in games. I mean, he is just, one of the best that we've ever had here. Obviously, we've had some great football players that have, been on this field and walked the halls, but he is, putting his stamp on being one of the all-time best. And that play in particular was a broken play to start with, and he flashed. Just saw his hand go up, and he waved to Lee Brooks, and Lee just flipped that ball over to him, and we're over on that sideline thinking the play's dead, and I'm more frustrated at the broken play, and trying to figure out what went wrong, and then he just makes a couple of moves, and I've watched that play as well as you have. over and over again. It just, every time I see it, it blows my mind. But that's what he does.
I was going to say, blowing your mind is a good way to put it. I know you like when I send you audio of plays that involve your team. I'll be sure to send you that one because I heard it today and I went, okay, the surprise in my voice came through pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, I grew. You guys, just listening to you guys before you came on. I grew up. We didn't have internet, right?
Right.
I grew up. We would listen. Even as football players, we would listen to the audio of our games. We'd get like a cassette tape of maybe a parent who taped
100%.
Our games on the radio, and we'd listen back, and that's what I really appreciate. In the past when you sent me those audio files, is listening to those games back. It's a lot of fun to hear you call a game, BP, and it's fun to listen, kind of visualize it through hearing it. So, I've really enjoyed it.
So let's go back to Thursday a little bit. Let's talk about the reason it was on a Thursday, because this is a problem in prep sports, and we've approached it many times on this show, but I'm going to keep approaching it until it gets solved. Thursday night lights are becoming more common because officials are becoming less common. How do we fix that? We've lobbied for how much fun it is, what it's like to give back to the community, what it's like to give back to kids. What, in your opinion, just isn't working that we can't find more officials?
Yeah, it's a little bit baffling to me. I mean, I think it's a thankless job. I think that's probably the biggest thing is, the on any given Friday night, depending on who you're playing or who's coaching, you're going to hear more complaining than compliments. And that's what I try to do, every week is try to make their job as easy as possible. Now, do I disagree with calls? Absolutely. Do I give a couple of refs an earful? But I don't think they deserve to be berated every play like I've seen some coaches do. And I think that's the biggest reason. They call us keepers of the game, especially in the Minnesota Football Coaches Association. Well, I think that's one thing is how we're treating officials. And, we want to recruit guys that, maybe that's former players or former, people who have participated in sports to be an official, but you got to treat them right. And I think that's the biggest thing. And at some point they're going to move on, they're going to retire. And how do we replace them is with people who have been a part of this game and realize how awesome this game is. But I think that's the biggest thing is week in and week out, it's just a thankless job that really doesn't get a lot of appreciation.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I also think that it's incumbent on, young coaches to make sure that the sport is fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Tor.
Because I think we're at a point in the world right now too, where, you've got the opportunity to, pick up some overtime at work or go work a high school sporting event. Like you're going to probably pick overtime because that's going to, give you more money towards your life, and we see that with even volunteer coaches nowadays. It's hard to get people to want to volunteer their time or even, put their time in for very little money for something like high school sports or youth sports, because things are so expensive nowadays. And it's, when you look at the people or the organizations that are running this, it's not like they can up ticket prices or find more money to pay officials. So you've got to find people that love the sport and want to do it. And that starts when you're 5-6 years old, finding a passion for it. And so I think, if you're a youth coach out there, you got to make sure that this is fun, because this is about, officials and players and everything. It's about the whole system working, right? I mean, do you see it that way?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we talk about as a program is like disrespecting of the refs is just not tolerable. There's zero tolerance for disrespecting a ref. And I always have had the mindset of they're part of the game. They're necessary to the game. They have their role and their part. Like this game, we don't play games unless we have officials. And so they're vital to just playing. And so we need them. One thing, we need them to play. And then two, like you said, I think that I go out of my way to talk to the refs outside of, the whistle and try to develop relationships with them too. So I feel like I have a good relationship with most of the local refs now after 6 years. But I think that is the big thing is our making it fun in such a way like that they'd want a ref. Like, why would you want a ref if it's just this thankless job that you just get berated every play? Like, how fun is that for a guy to come, like you said, make a couple extra bucks to get yelled at? Like that doesn't seem fun.
Yeah, that makes it a little more difficult to sign up for. But I'll tell you what, signing up to be part of Duluth Denfeld football suddenly sounds like a lot of fun. Let's take that theme. How much fun are your kids having? Because obviously winning is fun. I get that. But the joy with which they play was palpable to me on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, we try to have fun, especially when you're winning in a way. But I think the way that we win, the way that we're playing right now, I think we have a fun offense. I think this iteration of our offense is probably the most dominant that I've had. This was the vision that I had, 5-6 years ago when we installed this offense, and we have all kind of the pieces. I think that's how long sometimes it takes. Looking at my counterpart out east, I think that's what he's going to have kind of that same experiences, that it takes 5-6 years to kind of get all the pieces in place, and you have to have the players, and I think that's what we've done this year. Is we've had, we finally have guys who are out for football that want to play football. I think that's the other thing too, is teams want to play, our kids want to play for us because we have fun. Our practices are fun. Our kids know that our coaches love them. And so, yeah, I think this is a brand that is attractive to a lot of kids now.
Well, I think that it was evident that the kids believe in what their coaches are telling them. When we talked about it Thursday at the game, your team plays with such discipline in their assignments. There's not a lot of rogue guys running around where they're not supposed to be, and I think that's a testament to what you've built out there and the trust that these kids have in you. Because I think, especially with high school football, to see defensive ends that come in and hold their contain, to see linebackers running sideline to sideline, not necessarily worrying about the glory of the tackle, but getting into a spot where they turn the play back inside to their teammates to make the play. That was evident play after play after play, and it's just, I think it's a testament to what you've done building that program out there. So, yeah,
I appreciate that. This. We live in a culture here where the coach has a platform, but it's not inherent anymore. Of respect isn't inherent, the trust isn't inherent. That is all earned now, and so I think you're experiencing that out east with hockey. Is that you have to prove to them a little bit that they can trust you. You have to prove to them that you know what you're talking about. And I think that's where we're at as a program. Is we have inherent trust, we have inherent respect. I think my coaches are the best in the area. We've talked about this year, in the last 3 years, I think we've been the best coaching staff in the area of making adjustments in game. And we've shown that a couple of times, making comebacks or making adjustments at halftime and blowing teams out in the second half. But yeah, I think that's, trust is earned and respect is earned, and the belief in you as a coach is earned now. And I think that we're at a point where we're at with our program.
So speaking of earned, you're going to try to earn a victory against Duluth East next Friday at home once again. Coaches are motivators, but I would think you're not going to take the week off in that department, but motivation from you shouldn't be as needed. The rivalry speaks for itself. Your defense is coming off a shutout before we anoint them the 85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens. Pine City hasn't scored yet this season, but your defense was very good too. I'm going to close with this. What do you look for when the Hunters host the Greyhounds next Friday?
I think it's going to be gritty. I think it's going to be, for the last couple of years, that you throw the records out the window, so to speak. We struggled against them last year, and they were the favorite the year before, and we beat them. So it's like we come into this game, I think, after Friday night. Now we're the favorite. I don't think that's a reach to say that.
No
but
doubt.
Like I told Howie, I think they'll have our full attention.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you very much for the time. We'll do this again. Can you do me a favor and stop winning our fantasy football league?
You know what? I still need to get my name on the placard for the trophy. I at least have two.
That's in progress.
I was going to say, that is actually being worked on. Had you made it to the draft, we were trying to get it to you there.
I was there last year. I was there last year.
No, I know.
I didn't make it this year. I was there last year.
I joked with Steve on Thursday night that how funny would it have been if we would have brought you a trophy. People would have thought Denfeld and Pine City played for a trophy. That crossed our minds.
They're trying to get the SROs in the school are trying to get a traveling trophy for this game. So the East Denfeld game.
I like the idea. You can't have our fantasy football trophy, although you can if you win it again. You're off to a good start. You're off to a great start at the prep level. We love you, man. Let's talk soon.
Thanks, VP.
All right, that's our guy, Erik Lofald, head coach of the Hunters. They are off to a great start. So are the Vikings somehow, some way. Will it continue? We'll get PA's take. Hour number 2 of the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Steve Pitoscia. We'll be right back.
Now's the time to start your next adventure behind the wheel of an exciting new Toyota hybrid. With the largest lineup of hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electrified vehicles to choose from, Toyota has the one for you. Every new Toyota hybrid comes with Toyota Care 2-year complimentary scheduled maintenance, an exclusive hybrid battery warranty, and Toyota's legendary quality and reliability. Visit your local Toyota dealer today. Toyota, let's go places. See your local Toyota dealer for hybrid battery warranty details.